right, so for your creating scatter plots using technology, what you're going to get is something that looks similar to this. So a couple things to note here. First of all, there's always going to be a set of data off on the left-hand side, as well as a scenario given for you at the top. Off to the right-hand side, you will start to see some questions and some directions. Notice I made it very clear what you need to do. Place all answers in the green boxes below. Notice I have made certain boxes green. That is where I need your answers to be. So I need you to create a scatter plot of the data, place it in this empty space, and answer the questions. You'll notice that at the bottom now I'm using a different sheet, but yours will have different pages here that you can scroll between, and you need to complete the problems on each page. So depending on you need to complete all 5 of them. I believe there are 5 in your document. So in order to start these types of problems, what you're going to do is first figure out what is the scenario about. So this one says the students were given a timed math test of simple math problems. The time was chosen hot potato style, and the results below show how many correct answers each student had. So the first thing you want to do is kind of synthesize, what does that mean? So basically what this one is saying is that students were given a specific amount of time, and we're just graphing how many problems they got right. For example, this student was given 8 seconds, and they completed 10 problems in those 8 seconds. This student was given 42 seconds and completed 35 problems. So first things we're going to do is create a scatter plot, because once we have it, we will be able to talk about the questions we have afterwards. So in order to create a scatter plot, what you will want to do is select the names of each column, as well as all of the data in the column, like this. Once you have all of your data selected, you're going to go to Insert and a Chart. Now, it's going to give you a lot of options. Generally speaking, we're going to want a scatter chart. So if you don't see a scatter chart, you might see a line chart or many other options. You're going to want to click on the one that's called Scatter Chart. Now, once you have this created, there are a lot of different things that we can do, but for now, we're just going to focus on making the chart and making sure all of the names are correct. So the problems completed are on the y-axis for us right now. The time is on the x-axis, and then our title is just problems completed compared to time. Those all seem fine to me, but if they didn't, what I can do is just double click on any name I don't like, and it'll show up over here for me to rename. So maybe I wanted this to say problems correct instead of problems completed. And maybe I wanted this one to say, so I'm going to double click on time. I want it to say time in seconds instead. So you can double click on basically anything you don't like about the graph and make a change to it. So I could double click on this and say, I don't like the color of my points here. So I'm going to double click, hopefully, or single click, there we go. And I can change the color of my points if maybe I don't like blue today or whatever it is. Once you've got your chart the way you want it, I just want you to make it small enough that it will fit in this space for me so I'm able to see it as you're working, because not everybody's chart will be the same. The first question on each of yours is going to be about whether or not the graph is positive, negative, or it has no correlation. So in order for a graph to have a positive correlation, all that means is that as you go to the right, the graph goes up. So as I look at this graph, if it goes to the right and up, that would be a positive correlation. If as we go to the right, the graph were to go down instead, so the points were to be scattered more this way, that would be a negative correlation. No correlation is reserved for when it looks like a swarm of bees, where there's just nothing really clear going on. So in this box, you would answer that question. I would say that this has a positive correlation because it is going up as we go to the right. The second question is always going to be for you to synthesize, what is this graph actually talking about? So it says, is it possible for us to have a negative y value on the graph? Explain the real-life implications of that and why you do or do not believe it's possible. So they're saying, is it possible for us to have a negative number on this side? Well, this is talking about the number of problems that the students got correct. So is it possible for us to have a negative number of correct answers? I would say no, because that's not logical. It's not possible for you to get a negative amount of things right. I realize that some of you might feel like it is possible, but it's really not. The final piece of this is going back to your very first days in Algebra 2. So is this graph linear, quadratic, or exponential? What you're looking for is, do you recognize the different shapes? So in case you forgot, a linear graph means it looks like a line. That's why the word linear has a line in it. Quadratic would be that U-shaped graph. And exponential would be more of like an L-shaped graph. So when I'm looking at my picture, do I see a straight line-ish, a U-shape-ish, or an L-shape-ish? Now remember, those could be flipped or reversed or anything in any direction. Transformations do not affect whether or not it is linear, quadratic, or exponential. So you're just looking for those general shapes. So in this case, this graph is clearly a line, so I would say this is linear. Once you have completed a problem and you think you've gotten everything in there the way you should, you're going to move on to the next page on the bottom. So I would click on the next one, which I believe would be scatter plots 2 for you, and you'll do the same thing. So we'll create a scatter plot, make sure we're happy with all of the titles and everything so it looks the way we want it to look, and then we're going to answer the questions. The only other problem that I've seen that I wanted to troubleshoot for you was maybe your X and Y axis aren't the way you want them to be. Perhaps the problem's correct is on the bottom instead of on the side, and you wanted to do that, or wanted to adjust that. If you needed to do that, you would change those numbers here. So A2 to A56 is our problems, or our time. B2 to B56 is our problems completed. See, they're using the B and the numbers, the A and the numbers. So if I wanted to flip-flop, I could just change this so that B is up here and A is down here. So if you're unhappy with your X and Y axis, you can reorganize them by just switching which one is in each spot, the X-axis compared to the series or the Y-axis.